thing. With Elvis, I think, we saw it in gospel churches.
Yeah.
In 1975, Tom Jones was at a height few performers in history ever reach. In Las Vegas, his name alone filled rooms. He was earning close to $100,000 a week, headlining major hotels and selling out night after night. The image was untouchable. The powerful voice, the tight jumpsuits, the crowd of screaming fans throwing underwear onto the stage. But by October of that year, something inside him collapsed in full view of everyone. During a performance in Las Vegas, Jones debuted a new ballad, Darlin'. It was meant to show range, maturity, and vulnerability. Instead, it exposed how fragile his position had become. The audience did not want vulnerable. They wanted the animal energy, the familiar hits, the fantasy they had paid for. Booing started before the song could settle. It grew louder with every line. Jones struggled to finish even a verse. His voice faltered, not because it failed him physically, but because the room had turned hostile. Drinks were thrown, shouts cut through the music. Security rushed the stage and physically escorted him off mid-performance, while the crowd erupted, not in sympathy, but celebration. It felt less like disappointment and more like execution. For 6 months after that night, Tom Jones vanished. He canceled shows, retreated into his Los Angeles mansion, and spiraled. He chain-smoked endlessly, replayed the tape of that performance, and told his manager, Gordon Mills, that it felt like the end of everything he had built. But what really happened was not about one song or one crowd. That night was the bill coming due for years of excess, secrecy, and a private life that had finally become impossible to separate from the stage. Tom Jones was born Thomas John Woodward on June 7, 1940, in Pontypridd, Wales, in the heart of the Rhondda Valley coalfields. His childhood was shaped by hardship. He grew up at 57 Kingsland Terrace, a cramped terraced house surrounded by soot, dust, and the constant smell of coal. The family had little space, little money, and few comforts. Young Tommy shared beds with siblings, wore hand-me-down clothes, and learned early that life demanded endurance. At 12 years old, his life nearly stopped altogether. In 1952, doctors discovered a dark spot on his lung and diagnosed him with tuberculosis, a disease that still terrified Britain. Because his case was non-contagious, he was not sent to a sanatorium. Instead, he was confined to his bedroom for nearly 2 years. From 1952 to 1954, the world shrank to 4 walls. The windows stayed open even in winter to keep fresh air circulating. He lay under blankets, listening to the street sounds of a life he could not join. Doctors forbade him from singing during the early stages of his illness, which felt cruel to a boy already drawn to music. But he adapted. He listened obsessively to BBC radio late at night, absorbing American blues and rhythm and blues artists like Big Bill Bronzy. Those voices, full of pain and power, soaked into him. His mother bought one of the first televisions in the neighborhood, turning his room into a portal to performance. When he was not listening or watching, he drew and painted, imagining stages far beyond Pontypridd. When he was finally allowed to sing again, his voice had changed. The illness had deepened it, roughened it, and given it the muscular baritone that would later become unmistakable. He would later call tuberculosis a strange gift, weakness that forged strength. During those long nights alone, he promised himself that if he ever regained his freedom, he would never complain about effort or hardship again. School offered little refuge. He struggled with reading and writing due to dyslexia, which went largely unrecognized at the time. Teachers labeled him lazy. He disengaged emotionally long before he physically left school. Music became the only place where he felt competent and alive. He sang hymns, performed at family gatherings, and discovered that imitating Elvis's swagger could make people laugh. Attention filled a void school never could. By 14, he was sneaking into local pubs to sing Hank Williams songs for tips. The rooms were rough, filled with hard faces and hard lives, but they taught him how to command attention. One Christmas, he earned more money singing alone than groups of children did caroling together. At 16, he left school entirely and took any work he could find: brick laborer, vacuum cleaner salesman, factory worker. His first steady wage was barely enough to survive. At night, he sang. Life accelerated brutally when his girlfriend, Melinda Trenchard, became pregnant when they were both teenagers. They married quietly on March 2, 1957. 5 months later, their son, Mark, was born. Tom was 17, Linda was 16. Responsibility landed instantly. To support his family, he worked long shifts in a rubber factory, gluing belts in suffocating heat. He slept little, sang at night, and pushed his body until exhaustion became routine. In 1958, he formed his first band, Tommy Scott and the Senators, playing rockabilly covers across Wales. Progress was slow, but momentum built. A serious car accident in 1960 sidelined him for months and plunged him into depression. Without income and buried in debt, he leaned heavily on Linda. When he recovered, he knew factory life could never be his future. Everything changed in 1963 when Gordon Mills heard him sing at a youth club. Mills immediately committed to managing him. He renamed him Tom Jones, reshaped his image, and drove him to London with nothing but ambition and belief. After early setbacks, the breakthrough arrived in 1964 with It's Not Unusual. The song exploded. By early 1965, it was #1 in the UK and climbing in the United States. His appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show introduced him to 28 million Americans. His sexuality on stage shocked conservative viewers and electrified everyone else. Success accelerated. What's New Pussycat followed. Then Green Green Grass of Home dominated charts for 7 weeks. By the late 1960s, he was headlining Las Vegas, earning unheard-of sums and becoming infamous for the intensity of his performances. Underwear littered stages, security escorted him through crowds. Frank Sinatra advised him to own the stage completely. With fame came excess. Vegas nights blurred into days. Poker, champagne, women, and ego fed one another. Jones later admitted to sleeping with hundreds of women a year, sometimes using a dedicated backstage room. Tabloids fed on the stories. His marriage strained under constant infidelity. The most infamous affair, with Miss World Marjorie Wallace, became a global scandal that cost her crown and permanently damaged his reputation. By the mid-1970s, public tolerance began to crack. Fans no longer separated the music from the man. When he was booed off the Las Vegas stage in 1975, it wasn't just about Darlin', it was about betrayal, excess, and a fantasy that had rotted from the inside. The 6-month disappearance that followed was a reckoning. He smoked, isolated, and questioned whether he had destroyed his own career. Linda confronted him violently when she discovered the full truth of his affairs, leaving him physically bloodied and emotionally exposed. The glamorous image fractured completely. Yet Tom Jones did not disappear forever. Reinvention followed, slowly, painfully. By the late 1980s, collaborations like Kiss with Art of Noise reintroduced him to a new generation. The success of Reload in 1999 cemented his unlikely resurgence. Honors followed, including a knighthood. Still, the cost remained. Health scares, public scandals, and unresolved family wounds lingered. When Linda died in 2016 after 59 years of marriage, Jones retreated again, this time quieter and older. He sold their home, moved back to London, and spoke openly about grief. The collapse in 1975 was not the end. It was the moment the illusion finally shattered. Tom Jones survived, but not without losing pieces of himself along the way. The voice endured. The man paid the price.